Okay, so welcome everyone to our online event, Protect Humans Not Borders, on the human rights violation by the European Union in the Aegean region and on the medical conditions. First of all, we'd like to welcome you from the organizers. So welcome on behalf of the Bildungswerk Berlin, der Heinrich-Böll-Stiftung. My name is Johanna Scher, and I will guide you through our discussion today. Also, first of all, we'd like to thank our cooperation partners for realizing this event with us, who are Stiftung Leben und Umwelt, Heinrich-Böll-Stiftung Niedersachsen, Heinrich-Böll-Stiftung Hamburg, Diakonie Hamburg, Hamburg Asyl, Flüchtlingsmagazin, genau, und Flüchtlingsmagazin Hamburg. Yes, so as a short explanation, this is also our first online event, and everyone who joined us now and who's listening and viewing the event is very welcome to ask questions through the chat function. So you can write the questions to us, and please also let us know who you address with your question. So you can also write them in German, we can translate them for you, and there will be certain times throughout the evening where we will have question and answer sessions. So we will collect the questions and ask them a little later. So yes, first of all, just to give a short outline, we will start with an introduction and some entry questions for the participants, where you will get to know who are the panelists and what is their field of expertise. And after that, there will be a short question and answer session for just for clarification and comprehension. And afterwards, we will start with the discussion on who actually is responsible, what are the responsibilities in the current crisis, and also what can be done. And in the end, the last 20 minutes are also reserved for question and answers. So you'll have time then again to ask questions to the panelists. Also, another announcement is that we will stream and publish the event on YouTube. Well, now I'd like to explain a little bit why we actually did this event. As probably many of you know, most recently videos have been posted on social media from people living in Moria or other camps on the Aegean Islands, showing extremely long food queues, inadequate distribution of food, a lack of water supply, and an environment where social distancing is just impossible. So meanwhile, 1,600 children are promised to be evacuated from the Jian island to other European countries, of whom 47 have already arrived in Germany now. So one wonders when the rest will be evacuated and what will actually happen to the almost 40,000 people who are still stuck in the camps on the islands, since probably all of them are vulnerable after what they've gone through, and nobody, and especially not all the other children, the elderly and the sick people, should stay any longer in such an unworthy environment. So we felt that there was a need for a more public discourse about what has changed now, what could be done, and who should be held responsible and confronted to take action for a more extensive and sustainable solution to ensure the fulfillment of basic human rights. Hello, Erik. Therefore, We have invited 3 experts from different fields and are very grateful and happy that they were willing to and able to join us this evening. So now that we are completed, I would like to introduce our panelists to you. The first one is Esra. Could you maybe quickly say hello? Esra Simsir is based in Izmir, and since 2016, she works as the Jian regional coordinator in ASAM, the Association for Solidarity with Asylum Seekers and Migrants, leading and managing the activities of different projects in the Aegean region. And tonight she will report on the situation of refugees in Turkey and the work of ASAM in the health sector. Welcome, Esra.
Hello, welcome.
Also, we are very happy that Dr. Apostolos Veizis is joining us tonight. He's a medical doctor and the director of the Medical Operational Support Unit of Doctors Without Borders, or MSF, Greece. Prior to that, he already worked as a head of mission and medical coordinator for MSF and MDM in various other countries. And he will help us to understand the situation from a Greek perspective, as well as the healthcare in the camps. Welcome, Apostolos. And our third panelist is Erik Marquardt, and he is a member of the European Parliament and the Party of the Greens, and he works for human rights and has already been to Lesbos multiple times. Exactly, and he will report on his impressions from the ground and the role of the European Union. Welcome, Erik. So to begin with, we'd actually like to ask you, Esra, could you maybe tell us what is the current situation for refugees in the Aegean region in Turkey like? So, and what does ASAM exactly do? And what has been different with COVID-19 now?
Okay. Hello, everyone. First, I would like to thank
I can't hear you. I can't.
Is there any problem? Can you hear me?
Sure. Wait. Okay. Sorry, I can't hear you. Can the others hear you? No. Okay.
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 Hello again, everyone. Firstly, I would like to thank to Heinrich-Böll-Stiftung for their invitation, and then many thanks to everyone participating in this event. My name is Esra Simsir. I am the Asian Regional Coordinator of the Association for Solidarity with Asylum Seekers and Migrants, in shortening ASAM. Firstly, I would like to inform you about the activities of ASAM. Then I will give information about the current situation of refugees in Turkey. And so our association was established in December 1995 in Ankara. And our main aim is assisting the refugees and asylum seekers to produce solutions to their problems. We were the first non-governmental organization founded in Ankara in the field of refugee and migration, and we are one of the local humanitarian actors with comprehensive outreach in the area of refugees and asylum seekers in Turkey. ASAM's vision is to create a place where all asylum seekers and migrants can enjoy their fundamental rights and services and live in a harmony with the host community. And our activities basically are to provide access to fundamental rights and services, providing health, psychosocial, and legal counseling, providing temporary assistance for the most vulnerable cases, and to contribute to academic studies regarding the field of refugees and law, and to inform civil society organizations and public institutions about statistical data, needs, analysis, and migration tendency. ASAM has been working in close cooperation with the central and local public institutions, ministries, municipalities, delegation of the European Union, and UN agencies, embassies, and with other international organizations. We have some protocols with Ministry of National Education, Ministry of Health on provincial levels, and with Ministry of Youth and Sports. At the operational level, ASAM has around 1,700 employees. We have social workers, protection officers, psychologists, mobile teams, interpreters, and we are working in 73 offices, which are covering for the 5 provinces across Turkey. ASAM has the widest scope of field activities of any local Turkish NGO. When we came to the point of the current situation of the refugee in Turkey, as you already know, Turkey is the world's largest refugee hosting country with over 4 million refugees and asylum seekers. In addition to Syrian refugees, our country is one of the pathways and prominent reception country for refugees and asylum seekers from other countries. Due to its geographical position, Turkey has been receiving significant number of refugees from Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, and Somalia. According to data provided by Turkey Directorate General of Migration Management, number of registered non-Syrian refugees and asylum seekers in Turkey who are under the international protection is around 450,000, and the number of the registered Syrian refugees under temporary protection is 3.6 million. Only about 65,000 of the 3.6 million live in refugee camps, mostly located in the southeastern provinces of Turkey. And overwhelming majority of Syrian refugees are outside the camps and spread across Turkey's 81 provinces. Irregular migration is one of the other important issues in Turkey, especially Aegean and Marmara region. In other words, the west part of Turkey is an important transit, or we can say gateway area, which is a significant location for the irregular migration from Turkey to European countries. After this demographic information, when I start to explain the current situation in Turkey, I would like to begin with the developments on irregular migration. You all know the mobility of the refugees in 2015. After years, especially on May 2019, it has been observed a significant increase in the mobility of migrants at agencies. The reason for this increase was the economical crisis in Turkey, which directly impacted the refugees' life conditions. And the other reason was the declaration of the Istanbul governorship about the deportation of the refugees who are unregistered in Turkey or in Istanbul. And this development's impact continued until the end of February 2020. And this increase of the refugees' mobility affected the capacity of each institution operations in this field. In these times, as NGO and NGOs, in collaboration with the related governmental organization, we were working for strengthening the capacity of the first response institutions, which are responsible for managing the process of the irregular migrants in Turkey. And the second interesting development was on the 27th of February, after in the Idlib conflict and after loss of Turkish soldiers, the social tension against the refugees increased in Turkey, and the situation emerged high risk for the refugees living here. And on the 28th of February, Turkey's Ministry of Interior announced that the land border gates will be open to European countries. And with this development, in 2 weeks, around a total of 25,000 refugees gathered in the region. NGO and NGOs worked in the region in order to meet the emergency basic needs of refugees, and ASAM was there with its 150 staff during the whole of this process in Edirne. While the Edirne land border process continues, the first case of COVID-19 has been identified in Turkey on the 10th of March. And on the 11th of March, a COVID-19 pandemic has been officially declared by the World Health Organization in Turkey. However, despite the official declaration, the weights of the refugees in the Edirne land border continued 2 weeks more. in a parallel process with the taking measures of government for the COVID-19 outbreak on the 26th of March, the refugees were sent to different removal centers, or you can say camps, around Turkey, and they were quarantined. And ASAM has taken some measures to reduce any health risk for the refugees and the staff in the offices. Firstly, between 6th and 20th of March, focus group discussion, outreach activities, social cohesion, and similar group activities have been postponed. On the 16th of March, ASAM's protection activities have arranged in the form of counseling by phone, and the necessary announcements have been hanged on the entire of ASAM centers to inform the beneficiaries. And finally, it has been decided for all staff, for all of us, ASAM staff, to work at home since 7th of March, considering the increase in the number of cases tested positive. Now we are continuing our counseling over the phone, and of course we assess some updates about the current situation of our beneficiaries of the refugees. So maybe I can share the current situation during this process of the refugees.
Sorry to interrupt you. We have to take care of the time. So
it's the last sentences. Sorry. Now the refugees have difficulties in accessing livelihoods and basic needs for refugees in Turkey. There are a lot of requests of financial assistance, and they lost their jobs, and so especially children refugees have difficulties in accessing virtual education system, and so we update the vulnerabilities of the refugees by doing assessment. Accordingly, we change our activities in the field to emergency response activities right now. So we will begin to develop humanitarian and we distribute humanitarian and assistance with our mobile teams in the field. That's all I got to say for now. Thanks.
Thank you very much for these interesting insights, because I think most people don't really have an idea of the situation for refugees. It's really like on the ground in Turkey. So next, I would like to ask you, Apostolos, if you could tell us a bit more of what the work of MSF is in Greece or in the Aegean region, and what is different now through COVID-19. So how has medical care actually been affected by COVID-19? What can MSF now still do?
Yep. Well, first of all, thank you and the foundation to invite us into this beautiful meeting, and with very nice friends and people around. So that's first of all being a pleasure. Now, following up a bit the discussion that Esra started from another part of the Aegean to this part of the Aegean. So it's just the Aegean Sea who is dividing us, even though Aegean is for the fish. So normally, I mean, only the fish that can move and can cross Aegean without any problem. Now, the situation, what it's important to understand is that when we talk about people on the move or people being stranded, be it asylum seekers, refugees, or migrants, it's important to understand that, first of all, these are human beings like me and you and the rest of the people that we're talking about. Because most of the time we're talking about numbers, and the government's talking about numbers. But behind these numbers are human beings. That's an important part. So even though the number of refugees in Greece is not the same number like number of people in Turkey, the situation, it is very difficult. And it's very difficult, and I can prescribe it as a bad mosaic. Because in Greece, we have people who are being contained and locked in the Greek islands. You have people who are being contained and locked in the mainland camps. There are people who are homeless. So it's a situation that the impact of the conditions for different people is different. Now, why MSF is in Greece and what MSF does in Greece, and how COVID is being a barrier or not a barrier for our work. So first of all, we've been in Greece working since 1991. We are working and will be working with people who are in need. And among them, refugees are among the vulnerable people that are in need for support. So currently at the moment, we are working on the island of Lesbos. We're working in the island of Samos. We're working in line of Chios and also in Athens. So what we're doing at the moment, we are trying to cover the needs that are not being met by the Greek authorities. And at the same time, we're trying to support the issues regarding COVID-19. So among I would like to share very briefly that currently at the moment you have about 38,500 people. 35% of them are children, about 23% of them are women. And it's an average stay for them is between 5 months to 1 year. So our activities that are addressing this group of people are activities related to pediatric care, activities related to sexual reproductive health, activities related to mental health, activities related to water and sanitation, addressing the need of these people. Now, COVID, it's a cherry in the pie. COVID is something that is quite difficult. While among our societies, we've been talking about stay home, the answer is which home? In a tent that less than 3 square meters, you have 6 to 7 people together. When you're asking people to wash your hands, there is 1 water point for 1,300 people. When you ask people to go to isolate themselves if they have any problem, there's no doctor to call about. There is 1 toilet for 200 people, and there is 1 shower for 600 people. And as you mentioned, Moria itself, Samos itself, Vial in Chios, Pilin in Kos, and Lepida in Leros are the black pages of the European history. For me, this is a shame that we are seeing at the moment. So with the arrival of COVID, it is, first of all, the Greek authorities, they did not take steps to protect the refugees in the camps. They took steps to protect the local people from the refugees, while there is no case of COVID among the refugee population. So what we've been seeing at the moment is that people are being locked down from 7 o'clock in the evening until 7 o'clock in the morning. Only 1 person per family can move out of the camp. And that means that people have to spend more time in this side of these camps. That means that this is more stress and more fear for people because they have to live in bad conditions. And this has been increasing the violence between communities, the violence inside of the tent, because we cannot call it domestic violence. There is no home anyway. And there's also an increase of sexual violence. So as MSF, we had a big question mark, what we do in front of COVID-19. So if you see, most of the activities from the Greek authorities have been stopping, trying to minimize and to answer everything concentrated in COVID. So if we would stop our activities, providing medical care for people, that means that people will be more sick, people will die of other diseases and maybe not from COVID. Because as you probably know, from July 2019, all the new arrivals in Greece are excluded from the healthcare system. They're excluded from vaccination, they're excluded from treatment of chronic diseases. So what we did, we adapted our clinics by being able to run our normal activities and also focusing on giving support for people that possibly could be suspect of COVID. And on the other side, we have been pushing the Greek authorities first for evacuations of most people at risk, people more than 60 years old, people with chronic medical conditions. We created so-called green zones, like in Samos, we've been isolating in a place to keep people who are vulnerable in order to be protected from COVID. We increased water and sanitation activities by providing people water. Just to give you an example, in Samos, we're offering 60,000 liters of water a day for people who are outside of the camp. We also try to improve the toilets. We try to improve also access to hygiene and also to push other actors to take care regarding COVID. So in a way, the COVID situation is affecting, of course, people in the mainland. There are at the moment more than 200 people in the 3 camps in Greece having COVID-19 positive. And the unfortunate situation is that these camps are being under quarantine. So we need to explain what is medically speaking isolation. So if you have a case positive to COVID, you isolate the person. And when somebody is symptomatic or suspect, you quarantine in order not to spread. So what they did, they kind of quarantined everybody without ensuring a proper isolation. So that means that there is a continuation of cases in the camps and they are continuing the lockdown of the camp. So that means that people are depending on assistance and they are not getting enough assistance. So situation, it is quite difficult, and I expect to be even more difficult in the coming days because, first of all, people are going to think about other things. People are going to think about themselves, and again, people will be forgotten. And I'm very happy to see that as part of this discussion, protecting humans is not borders. At least we need to remind them on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, every day, like we remind each other.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your very, very important work at the moment. Like, yeah, the situation sounds like the situation has already been a catastrophe before, and now it's, yeah, even more disastrous. So Erik, in your experience, since you've also been to the Jian Islands or to Lesbos, what is the situation for people like in Moria camp, like from your experience, and what has changed since the pandemic? Maybe also what happens to the people who newly arrive on the island now? And well, after that, could you maybe also explain to us what the implications are of the current situation for the EU migration policy?
Yes. Yeah, I don't want to say the things twice, so I focus a little bit on a few points, and then we can follow up with a Q&A. But yes, I was on Lesbos for 2 months now, came back a few days ago, and in the end, if you ask me what happens to the new arrivals, I think the most important point is that there are I think there's one boat today, but since the 1st of April, there was no arrivals at all. Like maybe a few, yeah, maybe I missed some, but it was like there are almost no arrivals since the beginning of April. And there were some people who arrived in March, and they were basically without any rights and without any suitable accommodation. So basically they were quarantined at the beach, so people were stuck there for weeks, not only days, really weeks, without any accommodation, because they were in a situation where nobody brought them to Moria, which is maybe okay, because it would not be very helpful if people arrive new, come to Moria, maybe spread coronavirus there, but there was also no alternative accommodation. So that was one of the biggest problems. And I think it's still a problem because the Greek authorities are not able to provide accommodation according to minimum standards, as they are already in Moria not able to provide minimal standards. And then if you ask what changed since the pandemic, I would say not enough, actually. So people have a little bit less rights and a little bit more fear. But as you said, it was a catastrophe before, and it's still a catastrophe. Maybe we expect a bigger catastrophe in the next weeks and months. The authorities said they will do something. They started to build up some triage areas. People try to build Moria awareness teams where they clean up the camps, but in the end, everybody is aware that it's not possible to prepare for a pandemic in a camp like Moria, where almost 20,000 people in a camp for 3,000, and where you have not even water all day, there's not enough water to wash your hands. That's a problem every day. And you have so many problems that you are not even able to build a sentence with all the problems in 5 minutes. Nobody's talking about education. There's no access to education for children since 5 years. Yeah, that's nobody's talking about, because it's more important, of course, to talk about access to healthcare and chronic diseases who are not treated there in a good way. So I'm a little bit out of words in the end, and maybe we can say something more later. But the implications for the EU migration policy is, of course, not the best. Member states recognize that they are not even criticized if they break the laws we have. So for us as a European Parliament, it's a little bit the question. So for what kind of cases do we make laws in the end? Do we need a new pact for asylum and migration if nobody respects the laws we make in the end, and the Commission is not even find strong words against suspension of asylum laws, about suspension of fundamental rights, about minimum standards of accommodation of refugees. So yeah, that's something we can also discuss a little bit. Of course, we will make new laws, and we will also fight for more respect of the existing laws, but that is something I was thinking about a little bit on 2 months on Lesbos, where you had some other problems like far-right extremists and the police who did not care about them somehow. So yeah, lots of things to talk about, but I said I will not talk so long, so I stop now and then we can discuss a little bit.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for this also, like you're sharing your personal experiences to make it more visible and more, yeah, clear for the people what is actually happening there. Now we have very short time for a few questions. There are already questions. The first one is addressed to you, Apostolos.
Yeah.
In your opinion, what is the actual practical reason for the lack of the water situation?
Well, I think Erik mentioned already that, you know, if you make centers that are for 2,757, Erik, not 3,000, it's 2,757. If you make Samos for 648, and you have 7,000 in Samos and you have 20,000 in Moria, the structure themselves are made to offer water, sanitation, and showers for theoretically the specific number of people. So when the numbers are 20,000 and they are 10 times more, the system cannot support that one. Now, the authorities have been considering responsibility for the people who are in charge. So if the capacity is for 2,000, they consider that this is their responsibility. People, they have to set up themselves shelter. They have to find out the way to live. And practically speaking, it's just lack of ignoring the existence of people. That's why they don't get water.
Yeah, but why don't they send like water tanks, like enough water tanks?
First of all, that is a very naive question. Why? It's like when the revolution was taking place in France and the queen was asking why they are shouting in the street. People were telling her that they are shouting for bread. And then she was telling them that, okay, they can eat cake if they want. The problem today is that, as I said before, for the Greek authorities and European Union, keeping these people in the island is keeping certain numbers. So for numbers, you don't care. There are 5, 10, or 20. So there is no interest to provide people what is being, because they're being not considered as human beings. If they were considered as human beings, of course, as Greece, we're receiving every year 30 million tourists. We provided them hotels, we provide them food and nice water and everything. So the question today is that it is not that there is no money available. European Union, the only thing they've been doing is by just giving money to Greece. I mean, this is how they perceive the solidarity. So the question is that we need to be accountable for the lives of people. So in a way, that is not, the reason why there's no water is because they don't care. That's it. It's just very simple. Sorry for that.
And maybe 2 sentences to add, because just to make it visible, yeah, there is an NGO who is taking care of a better water facility in the camp, and this NGO is trying to hide themselves, actually, saying like, please don't say my name, because they are scared of fascists just burning their accommodation. Yeah, that's the situation, and they're trying to give their best. And we made a fundraising campaign with Viva Con Agua now, and they have some more possibilities maybe in the next months, but they're really, really scared, just because they're trying to improve the water situation in Moria. That's like the only thing they do, but they are scared that people attack them for doing that. That's the situation. So that's also an answer like of the like whole environment where it's just close to a crime in the mind of people, some heads, also maybe in the government in Greece, to help refugees with water.
Well, yeah, actually sounds quite bizarre, but yeah. Esra, there's also a question for you. You mentioned refugees are losing their jobs due to Corona, as they don't have family who could support them. Are much more people becoming homeless due to the current situation? So what is happening to them practically?
No, they are experiencing very huge difficulties about the economical conditions. Yes, they have family members, they lost their jobs. Most of the, I can say most of the Syrians or non-Syrians lost their jobs. So there are NGOs and INGOs and some governmental institutions in Turkey for the most vulnerable cases. We can support the family members, like providing rental costs, supporting with basic needs. We are providing hygiene kits. We are always in communication with our beneficiaries now. But you are right that it's very difficult. It's only 1 month, 1.5 months, and we have more than 1 month. In the beginning of June, the easing of the restrictions is on now the subject in Turkey, and some of refugees can find maybe in unofficial markets again job easily. I hope the seasonal workers are continuing their job. There's any problem, but their awareness about the COVID-19 is very low. So is the answer of the question.
And there's another question which says, how does the current situation in Turkey, now some offices are closed, it says, affects the daily life of refugees? The person says, I visited a center in Izmir, Ankara, and Kayseri and saw how the place, how they play an important role for refugees.
Okay, ASAM has huge operational offices around Turkey. As I explained, that we are given our counseling through a phone. Unfortunately, we have to communicate with them over the phone, and we try to manage the cases, especially our protection cases, very important for us. But it's not easy. We think that in the beginning of June, we will start again with all our mobile activities in Izmir, in Turkey. So that's all.
Thank you very much. And there's another question to Apostolos. The person wrote, I was in Moria, there were 11,000 people, and it was like a state of exception, using concept of Giorgio Agamben. Did the capacities of your center enlarged, and are they still active and helping the children?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to explain to the people who are listening to us that this is not an emergency of today. This is a chronic emergency that has been created because of a political choice. So let's be clear on that. It's a situation that is not a refugee crisis. It is not a migration crisis. It is a management and political crisis. I mean, now, what I've been seeing these days in the camps in Greece, especially in the island, is the worst picture that I've been seeing for years in my life, and since 2008 that I've been working systematically. Yes, we are adapting our services into the needs of the people. So our clinic, out opposite to Moria, it's seeing about 100 children a day, but still we are turning children away, because even though I've been expanding our activities in order to cover the more needs of children, again, the tension, well, they're called reception centers. I can call them open prisons. I can call them black holes. I don't know what to find a word, but today, what the sad thing as a doctor is that you are sending people to a place that is producing the disease. So these places are producing physical and mental health conditions. When you have children that is coming with upper respiratory tract infection, and you have to send him back in a tent without heating, without electricity, and without proper food, the child will not be treated properly. When you have a child who says at 7 years old and he says to you, I want to die and I don't want to go back to the tent, this is something that people are living in a violent situation on a daily basis. So what they know in their life, they came to find safety in Europe. And what they found in Europe, they found a place that safety is not provided, protection is not provided, horrible living conditions are provided, queuing for everything is provided, and they're seeing violence. And when children who are getting sick, the parents cannot help because the parents, they need assistance themselves. So you have the reproduction of suffering, unnecessary suffering. And this is also one of the difficult situations for us as MSF, that in other countries around the world, we've been able to change that reality. We've been able to call to European Union to change the situation in Congo, in Sudan, in Central African Republic. And today we are not able in the heart of Europe, next to the borders of Europe, because Greece and the Greek islands are the external borders of Europe. I mean, we're not able today to provide that protection, and that is a sad story.
I would go ahead with one more question now, and would ask you to keep it a bit short, which was to Apostolos and Erik. You mentioned green or clean spaces. Can you elaborate further what they are? Do you mean spaces for the most vulnerable?
This is called green zone normally. It has nothing to do with the parties, neither with the green. So it is an area that you can isolate people who are more at risk. So it's people more than 65, people with chronic medical condition. So this is next to the camp where we are trying kind of to isolate them in order not to expose them to risk. So that is mainly has to do with the colors we use in medicine. Green is for free corona, and then you have yellow and red. So that's the message of the green zone.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Now we would like to continue. We ask all of you three panelists to send us some political demands beforehand on what, from your point of view, should happen right now. And we would like to show them now so everyone can read through them. Oh. So this is what Esra sent us. I'll give everyone some time to read it. Okay, and I hope everyone's gone through now. Now we will show the demands which Apostolos sent us.
Dear Joanna, this is mine, and this is mine demand.
Oh,
This is not.
It was switched.
It's not important. Okay.
It's the other way around, you mean? So this is yours. Yes. Okay, we're very sorry. This is what Esra sent us, and the one before is what Apostolos sent us. Sorry. Okay. And this is what Erik sent us. Mm-hmm. So I think what everyone is very, what we all share as an opinion is that basic human rights are not respected in the Aegean region. And now that we've seen what should be happening, we would like to spend some time on like dissecting the responsibilities to find the facts, like who does what actually and who's responsible for this. So for this, I think we need to first understand of who's doing what on the ground, and maybe you, Apostolos, can tell us shortly who does what, like the Greek Asylum Service, the military, IOM, the bigger aid organizations. Who's responsible for the organization inside the camps, such as water supply and hygiene? And what is the role of the military?
Well, you are asking me to present a difficult story with a very short, in a German way. And that that's a very difficult task. Because at least I need to put one word. First of all, systematically, what I've been seeing, it's first of all, systematic lack of political will to address the needs of the people. Secondly, it is incompetence to respond to that. The states have been considering that by not responding to the needs of the people and leaving them in bad living conditions, less people will come. That never worked. Now, before I be very brief who is doing what, I have to tell you also one more word. When you have many actors involved, it's very difficult to find who is responsible, because then it will be blaming. The one that cannot be blamed is the solidarity groups and NGOs who are doing what the government was supposed to do. So the overall responsibility is for the Greek state. So the Greek state, through the Reception and Identification Center, is responsible for reception of people. Inside of this bizarre model of hotspots, European hotspots, you have inside of these pots, you have the asylum service, you have the EASO, who is supporting the asylum service, you have the reception and identification service, you have the health authorities who are coming from the side of the government, you have UNHCR, you have IOM, you have UNICEF, and you have NGOs on that. The army got involved on the Greek story because when the EU-Turkey statement was imposed and this hotspot were created, army decided and was in charge of setting up the camps and also at the same time providing food. So the water, hygiene, and sanitation is responsibility of the Reception Identification Center. The food is with the army. The asylum, it is between asylum service and UNHCR. Unaccompanied minors, when they are inside of the safe zone, are responsibility of IOM, and when they are out of the safe zone, are responsibility of UNHCR. So it's a mixture of factors, and there are more actors than people. That situation as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So there is a very complicated system with complicated procedures, and not very transparent, though, probably. Okay. So now we've heard how it is how it's organized in the Greek camps, more or less. Esra, who's running the shelters or camps in Turkey? Who's responsible for housing and who takes care of the homeless refugees?
Mm-hmm. The camp that we are calling the camps as temporary accommodation centers in Turkey. This is not the same with the situation in Greece. For example, only about 65,000 of the 3.1 million Syrians live in refugee at the moment, mostly located in the southeastern provinces in Turkey. And an overwhelming majority of Syrian refugees are outside the camps and spread across Turkey's 81 provinces. And refugee camps are managed by Directorate General of Migration Management, which is connected to Ministry of Interior. And in addition, Red crescents are operational with this governmental institution in the camps. And they give health services, education services, and basic needs of the refugees have been met in these temporary accommodation centers. And it's important to say that it's very important. And last year, the plan was that in the end of this year, the camps will be closed completely. And the refugees will be sent by Provincial Director of General Migration Management, sent to cities that they have chosen. The plan was that, but after this process, I don't know, I cannot say anything. Now, the basic rights of the Syrian refugees is here. Rights for accessing the health services, accessing to education system, benefiting from social assistance and services, and accessing to labor market, and right for benefit interpretation services. But supporting housing issues by government is not determined under the act or in any regulation. The fundamental rights of the refugees are regulated by the Foreigners and International Protection Act. In this point, as NGOs or INGOs, IUM, UNHCR, ASAM, we try to provide refugees with financial assistance from our project budget. Of course, this action cannot cover all the cases in it. Unfortunately, the assistance are limited, of course, with our project's budget.
Okay, thank you very much. So, like, to what extent, like both Esra and Apostolos, to what extent do your reports affect political activities, actually?
It's a difficult question. Yeah, of course, maybe our implementation, the activities and good practice affect some of improvement works in the field, but to be honest, unfortunately, our reports or offers about the migration management, global or national, cannot affect the political activities. But this problem is not limited only with Turkey. I think we have a lot of partners, as I mentioned in the beginning of my speech, such as UNHCR, EU delegation, the policy decision-making process are running in a different ways, I think. Okay, we are preparing some monthly and annual reports to the partners, to the stakeholders. Actually, I would like to say that migration is not a problem. That's why we do not have to publish lots of reports to change these issues over the world. Annual reports, monthly reports that we discuss the subject of migration crisis for many years. But we have to aware that the only solution is to bring to an end the conflicts, wars, the other issues in every country. This is the only one solution, in my opinion.
So regarding MSF, as I mentioned from the beginning, we are not only providing medical care for people, we are there in order to document through our work the problems that people are facing. And we try to give a voice on these people that don't have a voice. So the reports that MSF and press releases and the communication MSF have been doing on the national level and internationally, like we do also for other countries around the world, of course, they're not giving a solution to the problem. And of course, our objective is not to give a solution to the problem through our activities. The work of MSF is to bring a change. So the change in certain situations, even though with small scale, have been taking place. So at the moment, we are tolerated and we're accepted to be and do our activities. But to give you a few examples, when we had to push European governments for movement of children or to push for evacuation of the people from the camps, this pressure and this communication at least have been moving both on the European level and the Greek authorities and UNHCR and IOM. At the moment, we're seeing that very slow, but still we're seeing that vulnerable people are being moved out. If we're not there to push and to communicate about it, nothing will change. So I think, yes, through the reporting, we first of all inform also the people in Europe, also internationally, what's going on. And secondly, our demand to European Union, also to the members of the European Parliament and the Greek authorities have been, to a certain level, increasing the pressure to find solutions time to time.
Okay, thank you. Now, like regarding the power to decide on the supply situation in the camps, what is the role of the European Union in this respect? Maybe, Erik, you could explain us where restrictions in this regard come from and by whom?
Yeah. So in the end, it's not the responsibility of the European Parliament or the European Commission to take care of relocation, either of like food supplies in the camp. But of course, it's a responsibility of the European Union to act as a guardian of the treaties. And if a member state do not comply with the rules, there has to be a reaction. And in the last years, we just recognize that most of the European member states, not the European Union, felt very comfortable with a situation where you use the humanitarian catastrophes at the external borders as part of the European asylum policy, because the basic instrument of preventing people to come is deterrence in the end. And that's a little bit strange because since 2015, everybody's talking about pull factors. So in the end, we have basically a majority of European member states, maybe most of the European member states, who say, okay, it's a bad situation, but if we change that, many more people will come. I don't understand it from different perspectives, because before 2015, nobody said that we need a humanitarian crisis at the external borders because otherwise millions will come. That's not that was not the reality. That was a little bit different. And now we have a new reality where you need humanitarian crisis, just people who are suffering at the external borders to be visible there as poor people, because otherwise millions will come. I really don't understand this theory of the pull factor, because in the end, it's a theory which is basically very, very strong in the political debate, but leads, if you just think about it, it leads always to a situation where the external borders of the European Union must be more they must be more dangerous than all the other civil wars in Libya, for example. If it's not more dangerous to come to the European Union as the civil war in Libya, you will go to the European Union, maybe because you are forced to, because you are a refugee. So the policy we have at the moment is just to use deterrence and use policies which are just out of the values of the European Union to prevent people from coming. That's a big problem, and the European Union is somehow responsible for that. I just wanted to say that there's a difference between the European Parliament, which is basically against this kind of policies, the European Commission, which maybe they can make more, but in the end, it's the European member states who are not able since 4 years to agree on a compromise for a European asylum policy. That's why they are basically find just a compromise, which is basically to do whatever Mr. Orban asked them to do, because they need the consensus with him. And so in the end, what they're doing is just following his policies, even if they don't say that, because not relocating people, not evacuating people is just what the far right wants, because they want people in distress in the central Mediterranean. They want people who are suffering there. They want people who are suffering at the Aegean Islands, because they don't think that dignified perspective is for everybody is a good way to deal with the globalized world. Yeah.
So And what support has actually been promised or implemented by the European Union? And
money.
from whose side is it failing? Yeah.
Money, yeah, that's also one part of the problem of the European Union, as Apostolos already said. Some of the member states and the European Commission are in a situation where they think, okay, we give some money to the problem, then it is fixed. But in the end, it's also political will. You need just political will. And I can also write a little bit more complicated sentences than just evacuate, relocate, and respect fundamental rights. But I think it's very, very important to not make it too complicated, because it sounds very complicated. Who is responsible for the food line there? Who is responsible for the health system in Greece? And why is it not? But you don't need a paper with I don't know, hundreds of pages to understand that it's just a lack of political will. If you have a camp like Moria, where 5 years after 2015, it is not possible to organize a food line in a way which works. So that's just not rocket science, it's just a lack of political will to organize things that they work there. And especially in Corona times, you see how, not the word, but it's just a strange parallel world which you would not expect in Europe if you have social distancing everywhere in Europe. But situations where thousands of people are gathering in camps because that's the only possibility to get food to stand in a huge mob of people in a food line 3 times a day. And everybody else should do social distancing, and they are not even able to fix that problem. So if they are not even able to fix that problem, it's not about complicated strategies. It's just about political will and use their own possibilities to change things.
So maybe we should now get over to the part of what approaches are which approaches could actually work, and how what are possible approaches to take action now. So in your opinion, what do you think would be possible now and could be implemented? All of you can contribute now.
I can start from the bad part, and then I can go with the good part. So, first of all, it is realistic, it's manageable, and it's doable. So this is something it's possible to be done. What does it mean to be done? We talk about 40,000 people in the islands, and we talk about 70,000 people in the mainland. We talk about 100,000 lives. As Erik mentioned before, in the country, we've been receiving in the previous years even more people than today. The idea is that this is not a problem. The problem is being created. We know from the mathematics that every problem has a solution. So refugee, it's not a problem. The idea is that you need to manage the daily life of people, meaning that if people they have their own daily life, then there is a process and people can be managing their asylum for their request for asylum, etc. So that we need to change the mindset. And this is responsibility first of the Greek government. This is responsibility of European Union. And third, this is responsibility of European citizens, because this is taking place in the front of European citizens' eyes. And I think we need to make accountable how the money is being spent, what is being done with the money, and why the situation is like that. Because today there are 2.23 billion euros given by European Union to Greece. And the situation, it is that horrible. There were 700 million euros given now following the so-called attack at the Evros borders by European Union. So Greece is being seen as a shield of Europe, but at the same time, Greece is pushing back people in the sea and the land borders. It is trying to create closed camps. That means putting people under a difficult containment. And thirdly, is trying to stop their right to asylum. A new law is being voted this week and probably Monday where there are people are being cut totally of their rights. So we are talking about it's not a matter of respecting human rights. Human rights are not existing. And this is something very dangerous for me, that inside of European Union, human rights of people, access to life, access to health, access to dignity are being totally ignored. So what needs to be changing, it is that, first of all, the EU-Turkey statement needs to be deleted, because these have been considered in the beginning as a temporary measure to bring an order and respect the human rights and dignity of people. This statement has been producing suffering, death, and this statement has to stop. Europe and Greece, who are responsible for this situation, needs to change it. So they have to take the responsibility and not to leave the burden on the local people in the islands or the refugees. So the situation can change. And I think if the situation can change today, and we put an order and we run an order, there is no problem to discuss. MSF will leave the islands and will go to other places around the world. Volunteers will leave the islands and will go to other places where they are needed. And our discussion will be for another country, not for Europe. I mean, I feel shame that we're discussing for this small number of people, and they're suffering for years and for years with no ending. So it is possible to change.
I'm totally agree with the Apostolos, but the situation in or the Turkey's government role is different, of course, when you compare with the European countries, especially with the EU-Turkey deal. Official Turkish government really has tried, has tried to integrate the refugees into the country's social system, but we have to not forget that Turkey has serious political, social, and economical problems, and although governmental institutions have capacity problem here, and for implementing the integration policies, the Turkish government needs financial source and needs to improve the capacity of their institutions for managing this migration process. If we compare the developments between 2015 and 2020, we can confirm that yes, there are lots of improvement works, for example, in the health and education sectors in Turkey, with the funds received from UN agencies or the EU. But you know that this kind of improvement works are very important for the social inclusion of the refugees. And we know that if Turkey cannot manage this process in the coming days, the refugees will change directly their migration routes to European countries. And before the adrenal land border crisis, the increase of the refugees' mobility has shown us the reality. Mm-hmm. In brief, we are aware that the Turkish government's role is to integrate the people here, but as civil societies in these days especially, we have not any estimation for the future anymore, if the government is able to manage this process or not. Of course, I'm telling this only as a representative of one of the NGO. So.
Mm-hmm. So actually it sounds like that we're still also in Turkey in such a humanitarian disaster that we're kind of far from integration. So
can I say just a little word about that's a word that is very important, but you start about integration. People at the moment have a bed, they don't have water, they don't have food.
Exactly.
And this is the motto of European Union for the coming year: integration of migrants in our society. Today, most of the COVID fighters as health actors majority of them are migration background and people who are coming from that communities. So today, for example, it's a matter that if people are considered as humans and if we want to integrate them into society, it is something that can change from one day to another. The problem is that it is lack of political will. The word statements, slogans like sustainability, integration, whatever, this remains slogans if we don't do an action. And I think responsibility today, coming from the European Parliament to European Commission, to the member states, to Greece itself, etc., there is a huge responsibility in all the line. And I think there is a moral obligation of all the political parties and all the political world, but also the citizen, in front of this horrible humanitarian crisis that is ongoing. I think we need to change the situation yesterday, not tomorrow.
But starting from today, what do you think would be like realistic measures that could be implemented in a short time now to protect people?
If you want my point of view, I think on a very realistic and momentum, we can take all these people from the islands. We can put them, first of all, in the hotels that are empty. And then we will work in a plan that means that we need to integrate them into apartments. Today, for example, there are about 27,000 in apartments, and the rest are in the camps and the camps and the camps and in tents and tents and tents for years now. So I think political will would take to change the life of these people, we integrate them to our society. So now at the moment, we delete these dirty camps, we empty them, we put people in the apartments, and their life changes. Children, they go to school, they have access to healthcare. It's something that, it's something that if we start today, in few days, in few weeks, in few months, everything will change. This is possible to be done today, tomorrow. People, they're asking me, but no, this is not possible for one day. Of course it's possible. If you want, I know it's not October, but in October you're organizing the beer festival in Germany. So you can organize a place for 100,000 people, they can drink and eat, and the next day you can remove the camp and everything, it's fine. So I think it is possible. I said in the beginning, there are 30 million people who are coming every summer to Greece. And they live and they come, I mean, it's possible. We're not talking about something that is very difficult. Even for COVID today, that everybody is struggling to find a vaccine and treatment, they are putting the money on it in order to do the research to find this, etc. I mean, I think there is solution to that, and I think it is a matter of time and will to do that. For example, I mean, when they wanted to respond to the situation in Evros, the European Union, the 3 leaders, they came and visited Evros, presenting it, this is the shield of Europe. They just showed 700 million euros, saying, this is the borders of Europe. What does it mean, borders? Borders are important. State countries have borders. People, they don't. And as you said, we cannot put lives of people before, the borders. I think it's a matter of, this has to change. And I think today, what we're asking the government is to change the way how they're being treating people. People have to be treated with dignity. Be that undocumented, be that irregular migrants, be that refugees, be it every person. So we need to treat everybody as a human, and then the legal part of it, who is important for some people who are in need of the refugee status, it's something different. But I think what needs to be today, yes, we need to stop what is producing suffering. So stopping the EU-Turkey statement, considering that we invest our money and resources not on Frontex, not on border controls, not on fences, we invest them on human beings. We invest them on children who are 35% of them. They don't go to school, they're getting sick, they're not getting treatment, they are being traumatized, and this trauma is going to accompany them for life. So this is thinking about lives of people. And if we change this life of people, we will change our life, and we'll change lives for everybody. And if the people that are saying that this is a pull factor, I can tell you that the push factor that make these people to put their life in danger is more danger. And I can tell you that nobody leaves the house, because theoretically, if Europe was just a pull factor, we would see the millions and millions coming, but millions and millions coming. So I think that we need to change also the rhetoric. And something that is very important, what needs to be changed today, is that the Greek authorities are producing a rhetoric the last month, a rhetoric who is stigmatizing the refugees, a rhetoric who is making them as danger. And also, if you see the pictures of yesterday, people were moved from Moria to go to the north of Greece in a hotel, and local people, they burned the hotel in order not to let refugees inside, and the government was doing nothing. This is the situation that we need to change. We need to change the rhetoric of the governments not to blame refugees. Refugees did not make any mistake. It's their incompetence. And as Erik mentioned before, 51 people arrived today on Lesbos, and they are staying at the moment that we are talking on the shore of Lesbos. And this is a shame for humanity. I mean, this is something, the previous 151, they stayed for 1 month without any assistance. So I mean, I think this is how we are treating humans today.
Yes.
discuss about famous things about COVID and about future and solidarity. No, today solidarity is the virus we need to spread. We need to spread the virus of solidarity among all of us and to push our governments to change the situation, first of all, by killing the virus they call EU-Turkey statement, and then we will kill COVID on the second stage.
Erik, did you want to say something?
Yes, of course. Yeah, I can basically agree with almost everything Apostolos said. In the end, it's like my biggest problem is that I really I work the whole day on asylum and migration. You know, I can read all the laws, as I said before, but in the end, it's not very complicated to solve the problem at the moment. You know, it's like in Turkey, for example, we have 100 times more refugees than on the Greek islands, like approximately 100 times more. And now we expect Mr. Erdogan to take care of like 1 million people from Idlib. It's 15 times more people. No, it's not 15 times. I think 2.5 times more, 25 times more, something like that. You can count it on your own. 25 times more people than we have on the Greek island. And we had a discussion in Germany about a maximum limit for refugees in 1 year. Yeah, or like basically far-right Christian social union guy Horst Seehofer said, like maximum 200,000 people a year. He said it in 2017, and now last year we had 165,000 people, and this year we will have approximately maybe 100,000 or 130,000. So we are basically 70,000 people under our maximum limit from the far right. Like if we, it's a CSU, it's not far right, yeah, it's like democratic far right, I would say, like the democratic boundary to the far right. But like people went to elections and basically most of the people voted for parties who said, no, 200,000 maximum, that's not enough. Like we want to help more. We are proud of helping people. And now 3 years later, we are not proud as Germany to help people. We are discussing for months, like with more people who work in ministries, about 47 children who are coming to Germany after some months of discussions where really more employees of ministries are involved in the whole process than children. I really don't understand why it's so complicated to just say and understand that, of course, Greece needs some support and not only money. They need support in a way where they can also convince their society, which is basically, okay, let's that part out, which wants basically solidarity from the European Union. And if there is no European Union, because there is no consensus in the member states that they want to help people after 4 years of discussion, some member states just have to say, okay, we just use our possibilities now to help a little bit and not all our possibilities, but maybe 20%. And if Germany is using 20% of the possibilities Germany has, they can just say we evacuate the Greek islands, not every second week, but this time because we need a solution now. And we need also people who maybe live in the hotels in the summer because our hotel industry will have big problems and we maybe don't want to wait until they're bankrupt, but we want to rent some rooms that they can not like fire all the employees. And just not a problem to solve this problem. Maybe it's more complicated to find a new way of dealing with asylum and migration in the European Union for the next decade or next 100 years. That's a complicated topic, but it's not a complicated topic to take care of the Greek islands now. And I would say if we are not able to solve the easy problems, why should we be able to solve the like complicated topics for the next decade? So I like just start to do something and then we can talk about the next topic. Yeah.
Thank you. So actually, it like from what all of you have said, it becomes very apparent that it's a matter of how money is being spent and how resources are being distributed. and that these are decisions which make apparent that it's actually the political will which is lacking in this. So there's hotels to be filled, there's a lot of space in the other European countries. And there could also, from what you said, Erik, there could be like win-win scenarios created, actually.
Can I add one word?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we need to look at the win-win scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to please this and other. I think one word we need also to remember, it's accountability.
Yes.
We need to make people accountable. So individuals and all the states need to be accountable for what they're being used. Because what I know that European Union or the early states is giving the money based on the needs.
Mm.
Need assessment, and based on that, it's a money calculation. You need to remember that from 2015 and after, European Union have been giving to Greece and Turkey money without any need assessment. It is just to contain people. So how much money Greece is going to ask, money will be given. So money is not an issue today.
Yes.
Humanity is a problem.
Yes. Yes, so it doesn't even have to be win-win scenarios, actually, but there would even be the opportunity. Maybe right now, looking at the time, well, we also have started a little bit later, I would now like to continue with the questions that were asked in between. So the first one is Apostolos. Could you elaborate a bit more on the process of the selection of the minors who were taken to Luxembourg and Germany? Is the assumption right that most of them had the right for family reunion anyway, and they were not necessarily very ill and urgent cases? There are reports in the media in Germany stating this, and that the selection procedure lacked transparency and competence.
Well, what I need to share with you, because I don't have all the details in whatever media is talking about, I have to tell you that today there are more than 5,000 unaccompanied minors in Greece, and most of them are living in unsafe places. So people are living in rub holes, in tents, in police stations, in not safe environment, and I'm talking about unaccompanied children. So these children today, I think, for me, it's a priority, because if we want to give a solution, now that can be an easy solution at the moment, or a quick solution. We need to give the right to life for these children, because if we leave these children, first of all, they've been victims of violence, victims of sexual violence, and victims of suffering. So at the moment, the blame game between vulnerability criteria or criteria between member states is something that is probably, not easy to identify whose responsibility it's about. I think the member states, sometimes they play with words, because sometimes they're saying we want children less than 10 years old to be blown, to speak 5 languages, or to play basketball. So I think that today we need to talk about children who are unaccompanied children. And if children that are left alone and need to be reunified with their families, this is something that needs to be done. So there are solutions at the moment that families that are divided, part of the family here or part of the family in other European country, can be put in place. And of course, as Emma said, we've been talking about sick children. We've been treating in our clinic children with chronic medical conditions that are not possible to be treated in Lesbos, and sometimes not even in Greece. So we have all medical files for these children, and these medical files are being provided to the Greek authorities. So everything is being documented, so nobody can tell us that, they're not really sick, etc. So the criteria, it's a blame game between the member states, but yes, children, it is a priority for me to be taken out of the islands, because these children are part of are living a very difficult situation. We are having children trying to commit suicide, and we're having children who have been harming themselves. And age can be 6 years old, 7 years old, and this is something that's really quite difficult.
And another question was to Erik and Apostolos: are the fascists mobilizing in Greece to move to the islands to terrorize the refugees and support us there?
I can tell you, so Erik can continue, because he was there in March when the fascists, they were around. So, but the reason why you have certain people taking a certain role It's because the government is allowing that. Is allowing that through a rhetoric, is allowing that through not taking a responsibility, and is not allowing that but not doing anything about what is going on at the moment. So if the Greek government will take the steps, these people will not burn warehouses, will not break cars, will not beat the people. So that is something that has to do with what is the state's role. So the role, the state have been blaming the refugees, the state have been blaming Solidarity and NGOs.
Okay. Anything you want to add, Erik?
Yeah, many things, but like a short story. Yeah, I was on in the beginning of March at the beach, trying to convince the Maritime Rescue Coordination Center in Piraeus to coordinate a rescue of a rubber dinghy, which was basically in distress. Yeah, and Coast Guard was doing nothing. Stand there for hours. Then some right-wing fascists came and attacked me and my friend from Deutsche Welle, a journalist. And they were not really attacking us, so like we were not hurt, but they were saying, if we see you next time on the island, we will kill you and bring you somewhere where your mother will never find you. Then the police came, and the police did not take them to the police station, but us. Like me, I have a diplomatic passport, but they were taking me to the police station and saying, you should never be at the beaches again to see what the Coast Guard is doing. Next day, the defense minister of Greece was asked in a press conference, is it normal in Greece that like people are just hunting other people, like that right-wing people hunt people there at the borders? And he said, we have the right to self-defend ourselves. And that's basically not only looking away when something happens, it's basically just supporting right-wing fascists hunting people. And I must say that it's like very, very clear that it's really supporting them, because it gives them also the impression that it's not an attack if they hunt people, it's self-defense. So you can do that. It's self-defense, just self-defense to hunt people which you don't like or who you don't like. And that's basically one of the biggest problems, because then we had the shutdown in Greece. It was pretty strong. I'm now back in Germany. Very easy here. In Greece, it was pretty strong. You had to send messages to the authorities when you wanted to go outside in most of the cases. And now the shutdown is over, and we will see fascist attacks on the Greek islands in the next weeks. I'm pretty sure. And I expect, like, I hope that European Union member states, but also European Commission and maybe many members of parliament will react to that, because last time I felt very alone, actually, and all the humanitarian aid workers felt very alone, because basically they tried to save some humanity on the Greek islands, also people from the islands who were helping there, who were hunted at the streets, who were not able to go outside, who were really, really scared. And people had to flee from the island, actually, yeah? Had to flee from the island, had to park their cars somewhere where it is very safe, because they were expecting just to be actually killed. Some people expected to get killed just because they did humanitarian aid, and nobody was supporting them. And in the end, that's not only a shame like for the Greek islands or whatever, it's a shame for the European Union, because the European Union was not able to defend their, like, just the basic values in this time. And I also talked to Ursula von der Leyen about it, and to like all the people for days, weeks, and in the end months. But I was really shocked that these kind of things can happen in the European Union in 2020. And I think that, if there is no big change in the next weeks, we will see this situations again, unfortunately. And that is also a big sign of weakness for the European Union, if Erdogan knows that he can just send 10 rubber dinghies to the Greek islands, and then the whole situation is collapsing. Everybody's talking about refugees. if we just send 10 votes, and that makes us as 27 member states of the European Union also very weak, and it makes us also very weak if we have no answer to the right-wing fascists, which, if I can remind on that, if we remind us maybe a little bit what happens in the 20th century in the European Union, and why we have all these fundamental rights and human rights and dignity and all these laws which respect every individual. That's not an accident. It's just a fundamental answer on the first half of the 20th century. And I hope that most of the European leaders maybe at one day understand that it's very important to fight against right-wing fascists more than about people who just want to live in dignity.
Well, yes. The next question also, Erik, is for you, and is asking, due to the corona crisis, it's even more difficult to cross national borders than it already was before. How are the real chances to get people out of Moria at the moment?
It's not a big deal. So 240,000 tourists came back from all over the world to Germany in 2 weeks. 80,000 employees of for the asparagus. I think asparagus only is 80,000 people in Germany who are coming from different countries to help with the asparagus in Germany. So it's not a big deal. We can organize it in 2 days to bring them to Germany, especially if we order special flights for them, which would be also helpful for Lufthansa, who has also some big problems. And I'm green, but help Lufthansa a little bit and just organize some direct flights from maybe Athens, maybe Mytilene, whatever, to Berlin. So it's not a big deal. And to make it a little bit more structured, you just need a visa and an airplane, and then everything works. It's really not a big deal, but of course you have to be in quarantine after that for 2 weeks, and you have to make a corona test if possible. And but it's not a big deal. That's not the question in the end. It's possible to cross borders because airplanes can easily do that. It's nobody stopping them at one border or something.
Mm-hmm.
And if airplanes don't work, you can also use cruise ships.
Yes. So actually, corona definitely is not an excuse. Looking at the time, we have time for one last question, which goes to you, Esra. Could you say something about the pushbacks from Greece or the deportations from Greece to Turkey? Is it happening?
Yes.
Okay, that was the question.
Only yes is okay.
No, please continue.
Okay, especially after the Edirne land border issues, yes, I differ the land border and sea border each other, and especially after the Edirne land border crisis, and the Turkish government say that we are open the border gates to European countries, and announce all the refugees that they can go out from the country. And they, that they stuck between the Greece border and Turkey-Bulgarian border and Turkey border. And in these times, all the refugees, the irregular migrants, have been referred to Edirne here in Turkey. And in these times again, from the Greek islands, we faced lots of pushback cases. In the agencies, we never had faced with the pushbacks, but after this Edirne land border issues, yes, there are a lot of pushbacks, and situation that we rescued the migrants from the agency and sent here to removal center. They are released now. The situation is that.
Thank you. well, actually, there are more questions, but we don't have time anymore. So it seems like there's a lot more that needs to be talked about, and I'd like to sum it up with that. What became very obvious is, that the solutions are not difficult, actually, and that the political will is lacking to realize these options. So thank you, all of you, very much for your time and for your contributions. And it was, from my side, it was very helpful to have this input and to have some time to discuss about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you for organizing, Johanna, and moderating.
Yeah.
Okay. So bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.